What do you see when you look at me? Hello, my name is Marwa Abdul Halim, and I'm here today to talk to you about inclusion. Now, this is a term we often hear in schools and in organizations and pretty much everywhere else. But what does it really mean? The term holds a lot of depth as well as breadth. Is it subjective or objective? According to a few definitions I've read, inclusion can be defined as the act of ensuring that everyone, regardless of their identity, feels like they genuinely belong, are seen, relied on, valued, and empowered to thrive. Now, I want to stop here for a moment and focus on the word seen. It is how we are seen or perceived that determines how or if we are valued, or whether or not we're even given a path of empowerment in order to thrive. When I first walked onto the stage, what did you see when you looked at me? Did you see a human being like yourself? Or did you see something else? Something different, something unfamiliar? Or perhaps something you've been told to fear? Now imagine standing at an airport in Quebec, waiting to go through security, surrounded by the chaos of travelers, when suddenly a single encounter shifts the entire atmosphere. My family and I were just another group of people excited about our journey and our vacation plans when a man standing behind us locked eyes with me, which was followed by a look that was far from friendly. He held that look of contempt. Clearly, he didn't like what he saw. He scanned us from head to toe and from toe to head. Me, my mother, my little sister, and my son. I could feel the weight of his judgment. And regardless of not having spoken at all, this man's already made up his mind. I was the enemy. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me what I possibly could have done to deserve such a judgment. I mean, did we cut him in line? Were the kids too loud for his liking? If you've ever traveled with children before, you know how obnoxious they can get at an airport. I just couldn't figure out why, and the kids' obnoxious play was the best I could come up with. After going through the hassles of security and, of course, the random selection process, given what I look like, my family and I sat in a row near our gate waiting to board our flight. I thought for sure, if this man is so uncomfortable with us, he will sit far and clear away from us. Boy, was I wrong. He came and sat in the same row, leaving just a few seats in between us. Let the awkward vibes ensue. Now, at this point, I have had enough of the stares and the glares and fell victim to my personality. If you know anything about me, you know I don't let things slide. So I looked at my little sister who was sitting directly next to me and said, "Don't ever do what I'm about to do, unless you're at least 25 and you can come fool yourself out of any situation." She looked at me puzzled and begged, "Please, Marwa, please don't do anything crazy." She knows me all too well. I had already assessed the situation and determined that because we had all just gone through metal detectors and there's security everywhere, I was going to confront this man. Yes, I was going to do the unthinkable and confront this man with full confidence, knowing that he's completely unarmed and that if he tried to pull anything funny, security was just around the corner. So I rolled up my sleeves and walked directly towards him. Now, I know what you're thinking. I didn't smack him with my carry-on, even though that's exactly what I felt like doing. But instead, with the sweetest voice possible and with a smile from ear to ear, I disarmed him and asked him if the seat next to him was taken. And that's when it all began. That's when I decided to take conclusion into my own hands and respond to his fear and ignorance with nothing but kindness. He looked up from his phone, completely stumped. I could tell that there was 1,000 questions and comments going through his mind. This woman speaks English? Why is she even talking to me? What if she's part of some crazy radical cult? And at this point, I was thinking, what in the world did I just get myself into? But I knew I couldn't walk away now. I had his full attention. He looked at the seat next to him, on which was his backpack, looked back at me, said nothing, and started playing with his phone again. Did this dude just ignore me? Oh no, I thought. Absolutely not. No one ignores me. So again, with the sweetest voice possible, I got straight to the point and said, "Excuse me, sir. I noticed that there was some sort of animosity between us while we were lined up back there, and I was wondering if I did anything to offend you. Because if I did, I'd really like to apologize." He barely looked up from his phone, and in a French accent, which I can't imitate, so I'm not even going to try, he says, "No, no, no, it's nothing," and brushes me off. I insisted that something must have happened to have made him feel so uncomfortable, and he insisted that there was nothing. Clearly, I wasn't going to go away. And when he finally succumbed to my stubbornness and persistence, he looks me dead in the eye and asks, "Do you really want to know what my problem is?" I said, "Yes, of course," beaming, yet with a very concerned stare, because am I really ready to hear what this man has to say? And that's when he confessed and says, "My problem is your religion." In that instant, I knew exactly what he saw when he looked at me. All he saw was a headscarf that he believed symbolizes oppression. He saw something vastly different than what he was used to seeing. And last but not least, he saw something he was told to fear. I stood there in absolute disbelief. I mean, I've heard of people that have serious cultural prejudices. I know that they exist, but never in my life did I think I would encounter a real one, and not one that was so open about it. Yet here I was in an airport, standing face to face with a very culturally prejudiced human being, and one that wasn't afraid to speak his mind. I asked him again if the seat next to him was taken, and that's when he aggressively moved his backpack to the other side. I took this as an invitation to sit down. So I planted myself in that uncomfortable chair, you know how uncomfortable those airport chairs are, and made myself very comfortable. I knew it was going to be a long afternoon. I reassured him that we were both adults, and thus we can agree to disagree. But I wanted to know why he had a problem with my faith. And that's when the floodgate of questions opened up. He asked question after question after question, all with a very condescending voice, spewing with his biases. He asked me things pertaining to my hijab, that is my head covering, and he was surprised to learn that it was a choice, and that I truly believed that everyone has a right to wear their faith in any which way they pleased, so long as it didn't hurt or harm others. I compared this to his love of tattoos that were visible on his body. I admired them and reiterated that this was his way of expressing himself, and that was okay. He asked me where my parents are originally from, and when I told him that they are from Egypt, he wondered why they had even immigrated to Canada if Egypt was their homeland. Fair question. I let him know that in the 80s, my father had just completed a master's and PhD from the University of Birmingham in civil engineering, and that Canada was accepting and approving applications of the highly educated. I could tell by his facial expression that that barbarian, my father, was that highly educated. He was really impressed. That led to the conversation of women and education. And that's when things got real juicy. He was surprised to learn that my father actually paid for my master's degree just to ensure that I get it done. Wait, what? You're allowed to go to school? Not only am I allowed to go to school, but I am an educator who has taught internationally in 4 different countries. Wait, hold up. You're allowed to travel? Yes, sir. I've been to 52 countries and counting. I mean, traveling also got me kissing giraffes for whatever reason, but listen, what happens in Kenya stays in Kenya, okay? He was absolutely shocked. I have never seen a jaw drop so close to the ground. It dropped like a sack of potatoes. What started out as an interrogation of the automatically guilty slowly turned into a genuine curiosity about my lifestyle. He wanted to learn more about me, and this is what I told him. I've done this. I've also done this. I love to do this. This is what I've done for humanity. And this is where I was featured. At this point, he had to physically pick up his jaw because it was all too much for him to manage. We went from, "You are the enemy," to, "Oh my goodness, will you marry me?" We began to make connections as we found common ground. I could tell that his perception of me and my family was slowly beginning to change, and he was becoming more at ease. He began to see me as a human, and not just as a poster child for my faith. All his questions reflected common stereotypes, but as the hours passed, our exchange became more open, followed by him becoming more open-minded. All of this, and we haven't even boarded the flight yet. Once we boarded the flight, he asked if we can continue the conversation, and so we did. We spoke for a total of 4 hours straight. We were both fully engaged in conversation, and let me tell you, out of all the flights that I've been on, that flight flew by. Once we disembarked, even though we had just spoke for 4 hours, we weren't done yet. There was still so much more to tell. And that's when he asked me if I had Facebook. I said, "Of course I have Facebook. People of my faith are allowed to have Facebook, you know." This whole situation has taught me something essential. Being that we respond to ignorance with kindness, we break down the walls that keep us divided. I could have let his initial perception of me, my family, of who we were control the narrative. But instead, I chose to rewrite it. I chose inclusion. You see, inclusion doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it doesn't happen all at once. It happens when we decide to make small, everyday decisions to embrace our differences with compassion and to confront ignorance with empathy. It is in those moments that we create long-lasting changes, not just in others, but within ourselves. Now, the story doesn't end there. I know what you're thinking. No, we didn't get married and have 6 kids. But he did contact me a few years later on Facebook and let me know that he and his partner were expecting a child and that he was so happy to have met me because now that he'll be raising his own, he knows to raise them with an open mind, an open heart, and accepting of others. Thank you.